Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Well, excitement continues to build here on the offseason as the Bears and the rest of the NFL gather here in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Measurements and drills underway. Many conversations coming to light league-wide when the players march out here and talk to the media, not to mention GMs and head coaches. And our third member of this crew, Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio, has been at the center of it all. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. Thank you to SiriusXM for allowing us to utilize their stage and engineering here in their radio row. Really appreciate it. Tell everybody at home, thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot. Hey, there's a lot going on this week. This is a tribute to Tom Thayer because they saved the best for last, Tom. The linemen go last, and that's what the Bears need. So we're going to hear on Saturday all the offensive linemen when they roll through here, and to me it's always the most enjoyable because Tom can back me up on this. Offensive linemen are the best. One, they're smart. And they're humble because they're either kicking somebody's ass or they're getting their ass kicked, and they just kind of tell you the way it is. And it's the funnest part of my week down here at the Combine, Tom. So that's my tribute to you.
Well, Jim, outside of the position of quarterback and maybe some cornerbacks, they're the only every down position player there is. Yep. So you're not evaluating a player that you hope can rush the passer 30 times a game or a defensive lineman that can stay in the rotation and give you 35 quality snaps. You're talking about a group of guys that have to average about 300 pounds now, and they have to go out there and be willing to play 17 games a year of hopefully a minimum of 72 to 75 snaps a game. So there's a lot of unique qualifications that you have to overcome or be evaluated for. And then I think it's also where the weight room takes a different type of a different type of fun rather than everything being done on the field, because you can tell a lot about a player's commitment, especially an offensive lineman, about what they're able to do inside the offensive line.
And you guys are big on room. You guys are big on that, you and Pat Kerwin, when you bring – I think Pat has he computes all the big three lifts, and if it gets to a certain number, he knows that he's put in the time and he's ready for NFL labor.
Yeah, they're explosion numbers. Yeah. It'll be your broad jump, your vertical jump, plus how many times you do the 225.
Right, but also the lifts.
Well, the lifts. If you're over probably 1,300, you're good.
And that computes what lifts.
It's your bench, it's your squat, it's your power clean. Like last year, that Powers Booth, he had like 1,500. I mean, that's like a crazy number. Or Barton. Barton was the starting center for Tampa. Dude, he pancaked Bobby Wagner his first start against Washington. I mean, that guy's a player. But, yeah, it equates. But I enjoy interviewing the offensive linemen because they're down to earth, they're smart, and you do. Those numbers that Tom's talking about, when you go in the way, you're going to find out if a guy's serious about. Like we interviewed a guy today. Well, we don't. A lot of the players try to get out of the question by saying we don't max anymore. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I heard that too, and I know Tom must have freaked out when I heard that today, listening to some of this. Yeah. We go light and more reps.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Tom?
Listen, if 225 is your max, then you're telling me all you need to about yourself. If you're 225 is something that should really be your second set in your progression of going up. It should be 135, 225, 275, 315, 365, and then you start getting up in the smaller increments. Like we're talking about the offensive line and stuff, Jim. It's like watching the defensive line today and then waiting for the offensive line later in the week. I don't even care for offense and defensive line for 40s anymore. Tell me what their 10-yard is. Let me see the explosiveness. Tell me about a defensive tackle if you want to evaluate a 3 technique in his explosiveness upfield. I don't care what Aaron Donald did in the 40. Tell me what Aaron Donald did in the 10. And I bet you it's one of the most explosive evaluating positives that you can have for those two groups.
And he lived in the weight room, but a guy tried to get out of the question by saying he was country strong. Okay? So I said, basically, when you do find your way into the weight room, what are your numbers? Because you and I know that country strong doesn't have endurance. So when Tom says he goes up to 315, Tom was probably doing 10 because I'm getting ready to go higher. You know what I mean? All that endurance to do that, country strong can only last so long. But if you're trained to last and you are strong, legitimately strong, that'll be for the duration of the game.
All right, I know you don't like talking about this, but okay, Jim, go step by step on those 3 lifts. Ask Tom. Okay, what's the first one?
Tom, what'd you bench? Max.
The most I ever benched was 535.
Boom.
All right. We put that down.
Add these numbers up.
Right.
Squat. What was your max?
In the presence of the great Clyde Emmerich, I did 810.
810.
Okay.
2 lifts alone, he's at 1,300.
1345. What do we got? What's the last one?
What's your power clean? Power clean or did you deadlift?
I deadlifted 575, and that was my worst lift.
That's almost 2,000. What is that, 1,800?
How about power clean?
Power clean, I did a 315.
Yeah. So
315. So we're at 1660. How's that work?
Pat Kerwin has been doing that. You would be in the upper echelon. I only know of 3 other players that were over 1,600 of these modern-day players from when Tom played.
I will say this: I only weighed 286. If I could have gotten to 300 pounds or over, I could have increased those lifts significantly.
But you're doing the work in the weight room, and that carries you through. And that's what you got to do with these guys.
Did you do the 225 for giggles?
No, I did not down here because you throw the next day, so I did not. Yeah. The other quarterbacks I think Brady Quinn did it like 24 times.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't equate, right?
Yeah, because the problem with quarterback is you get too bound up. This is what I said about Blake Bortles and even Brady Quinn. They were too bound up. When you get too bound up like that, you lose your elasticity in your arm. Your arm's got to be like a whip. It's the last thing. Everybody thinks when he's got a great arm. No, it's not his arm. It's his ass, which is his glutes. It's his core, all right? And the last part, it's your thighs as a quarterback because that's where you generate what Tom talked about, power. All the last thing is your arm's the whip. It's your core, it's your thighs, it's your glutes that generate the power. The last thing is the arm. It's just a whip is all it is. So you don't need to bench 225. You want the elasticity in that thing so it just snaps like a rubber band. That's why when you see Aaron Rodgers, his arm's loose. His elasticity, and that's where the power comes from is those core lifts that Tom's talking about.
Here would be my trio: 0, 0, and 0. We got to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Bears general manager Ryan Poles. My sit down with him this week here at the Combine. Also coming up later on, Eric Edholm from NFL.com to preview this NFL Combine here in Indianapolis. Here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
McGrath, Dan Brilli, and Jordan Tredup, and the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network, Eric Ostrowski, as we focus on what's going down here in Indianapolis. We're live at the Scouting Combine with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. Linebackers getting their work in after the defensive line did theirs, and the defensive lineman, that's been the talk of the Combine weeks leading into it, right back to the Senior Bowl and all the other All-Star games, Jim, because there's a plethora of especially defensive tackles and edge rushers. More so, I'd say the defensive tackles. In my opinion, maybe you would disagree, but boy, the athleticism they showed earlier today, wow.
Shamar Stewart put up really good numbers. But his sack totals aren't great in college. Landon Jackson from Arkansas, who we saw at the Senior Bowl, he did really well today. And what I like about Landon Jackson, since the versatility of it. It not only he's like a mini Mad Max Crosby, but they kicked him down at Arkansas to 3 technique. So here's a guy who's legit, like Shamar and them, and even James Pierce. Those guys are only in the 240 range. Landon Jackson's 270. 270. They would kick him down to 3 technique because of his speed, and they just run a whole bunch of twists, pirate stunts, all that stuff. And dude, that guy's got a motor. That's just crazy. I think he is really good. Like, for me, he's my top guy right now. And now I'll have to go back and look more on Shamar because the sack totals don't correlate to what he did today.
Tommy, I saw something. They compared him in terms of the athleticism, the unique freak athleticism of Myles Garrett. And they had him, I think, at 260. So I don't know. Maybe he put on a bunch.
He played at 270. 275 was his highest, I asked him.
Shamar.
Or no, Landon.
I'm talking about Shamar.
Yeah,
I'm talking about Shamar. But the guy today, he had a 10-11 broad jump. He had a 40-inch vertical jump.
Yeah.
And he ran like the wind. Tom, I don't know. I mean, that's hard. And I also heard Nick Scorton, his teammates, say, well, they had restrictive pass rush plans for these guys at Texas A&M. So I don't know. But all I know is he's a fantastic athlete, and people are already talking about him in the top 10.
Well, we just talked a little bit about your investment in the weight room, and I've seen film of him benching or deadlifting over 600 pounds and doing it easily and having a fun expression on his face while he's doing it. And that's not easy. So that's not something you just walk into the weight room and do. You have to have countless hours that you're spending in the weight room doing those kind of exercise to do those kind of weights. I was really disappointed that Grant and Graham didn't do anything at the Combine from the two Michigan defensive linemen.
Yeah, I guess Grant tweaked something.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know how you tweak something, when you're leading up to the Combine. And Walter Nolan, I'm kind of interested in him because when I thought Aaron Donald came out, I go, wow, I don't know if this guy's big enough. And the comp they make to Walter Nolan is Aaron Donald. Yeah. And so I'm putting a little bit more interest in that explosiveness that he's shown like a lot of those other guys.
And Carter didn't work out from Penn State. He's got supposedly he's got a foot injury. So whether he needs surgery or not.
Well, they're saying no surgery. They're recommending it anyway. Doctors are recommending no surgery.
Get it. I would get it.
Interesting.
I would get it.
But
that's just my take on it.
Why?
Well, because I think what happens is, think of who's the guy that the Raiders drafted, Tyree Wilson. He came here, and it was type of the thing. Well, does he need it? No, we'll just let it heal more. And then he had to get it, and he basically wasted his rookie year. So I think if there's, to me, if there's any gray area, I'd get it, depending on the surgery. Say if it's a fifth metatarsal surgery, because we see, like Julio Jones worked out here. He had a fifth metatarsal. They didn't diagnose it till after he worked out. They go, well, how have you been running on this? He goes, just my foot throbs every night when I go to bed. And they said, and they finally went back and looked at it, and he had a fifth metatarsal. You get that crack. When you're an explosive player, those bones to your toes, they're under a lot of stress when you have that type of explosion. And Julio Jones was one of those guys. He still jumped a 40-yard or 40-inch vertical. He went through all the workouts, and it's like, and then when they told him, he said, well, you've been playing with it. You can keep on playing with it, and he got the surgery, and he was even better after that.
One thing about Carter, he's one of those self-anointed best guys in the draft at the podium. But I'm still interested to see Campbell and Walker. Campbell from Alabama, Walker from Georgia. Because when you look at the three templates, the three bodies, there's a lot of similarities between them. They all have great versatility. And I think a lot of their success is going to have to do with the type of defensive teammates they go along with. And, so I'm interested to see those guys throughout their career as I am Carter.
And Campbell, you're talking about the linebacker, correct?
Correct.
Because that's beastly.
Yeah. I mean,
a tackle machine.
Yeah. Well, there's guys down here. I think the Georgia linebacker, Walker, he's probably going to test pretty well.
He's the guy that I love that guy.
Well, it's kind of like a Roquan. He's a heat-seeking missile, and Georgia Bulldogs, and they like practicing hard. I mean, I kind of like that, how they practice. There are certain universities out there that prepare guys a lot better.
Give us a few.
Well, Kirk Ferentz, we know there's a lot of tight ends that come out of there. Lachey, coming out of there. He's going to do well. I mean, look at the history of tight ends there. Obviously, Georgia, you're going to look at all those SEC teams. Think about even now where coaches have landed. Like Boston College used to be a great offensive line. Now Bill O'Brien is back there, pro coach, believes in running the football, all those type of things. So there are certain traditions that carry on. Pat Narduzzi does a great job at Pitt Panthers. That Bartholomew, the tight end there, and think about where you mentioned Aaron Donald comes from. Jordan Addison was there. Pat Narduzzi's kicking out a lot of talent out of the Pitt Panthers. But, there's those little cradles of football.
Notre Dame,
my Notre Dame
tight
Iowa.
end. They're tight end.
Well, Notre Dame's a guarantee. I mean, Tom, he's waving the flag every week. They're kicking it out.
And I got a lot of Iowa State guys here. I can't wait to see Jalen Noel run as well. This is great fun talk. This is what I love about it. The off season and this part of it.
There's a lot of action.
There's a lot of action, and we haven't even scratched the surface on the free agent talk. With word today, fellas, I know a lot of Chicagoans and Bears fans would like to automatically take the deposit of Tyler Smith and put him on the offensive line and pay him whatever. But Kansas City reportedly planning to franchise tag him, as they should, honestly.
Tom, do you think – I talked to Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle of the Buffalo Bills. He said that's the best interior trio in football. They've got Trey Smith at right guard, Creed Humphrey, who's a left-handed center, who's really strong, and then Joe Thuney had to kick out the tackle, but you put Joe Thuney, he's an all-pro guard at left guard. And Ed Oliver said that's like a wall you can't get through. He said it's the best trio, he said, in football.
Those three interior guys, they know exactly how to work together. They have to communicate very little. They're strong at the point of attack. They work well against stunts in the middle. And that's why over the last 2.5 years, maybe 3 seasons, the only position we talk about in reference to Kansas City's weaknesses is their offensive tackle position.
Yep.
And if they ever had a couple guys, and I don't know if they're unaffordable or they have to hit on a couple of rookies that come in and play on rookie contracts for the remainder of Mahomes' contract.
This brings up a great discussion point. So the importance, say, of the interior three versus the importance of your tackles. And you're the offensive lineman. You're the quarterback. Do you feel more comfort in the pocket when your interior three are staying strong? With a guy like Mahomes who can't escape maybe from trouble if it's forcing him to the outside? I mean, you guys tell me what's more important now as we look at the Bears' offensive line and this particular quarterback. Tommy?
If I'm playing against Aaron Donald, I want my middle three as strong as they could possibly be. If I'm playing against a guy like Jones, the defensive lineman from Kansas City, I need to have, solid offensive tackles. Wherever your weakness is, the opponent is going to identify that and take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. So you need a solid group of 5 up there. I don't think that you can have a perceived weakness and get away with it for an entire season, because if you're playing against a team that had a guy like Reggie White, he would line up over you every time.
They did the best thing that they could do. If you remember, they signed DJ Humphries, who was a first-round pick out of Arizona. They wanted to put him at left because DJ started as a left tackle. He kind of stunk early. Bruce Arians gave him some tough love. He said that was the best thing that happened to him. Came back, he became a really good starter. Has also played right tackle, but he was coming off an injury when the Kansas City Chiefs signed him. They were hoping he was going to get healthy, and that would at least helped out the offensive line. So Kansas City went with their best option. Put Thuney out at left tackle. They brought in Caliendo as the left guard. But as Tom mentioned, you may get by in the season, but what's the postseason? Right. It's the best of the best. Your weaknesses are going to start to be exposed. And what are their 2 Super Bowl losses? Right. Their tackles got abused by Tampa and now this game.
Well, so with that being said, then, as we look at our Bears, where do you want to put your resources in the offensive line immediately?
Yeah, we know the interior. Nate Davis is gone. It's the interior. Whether they decide to put Tevin Jenkins back to guard, I'm all for it. At right guard, I like Darnell Wright.
He's a free agent, though.
Yeah. Darnell Wright as a tackle. If you're able to get Tevin as a guard, I thought he played the best there. Center, on down, start looking. I mean, they need to secure that offensive line, to run the football. And like I said, Ben Johnson comes from Detroit. Penei Sewell is the best right tackle in football. If you look at all their runs, it's over Penei Sewell. Frank Ragnow is the strongest center in football. I saw when Frank Ragnow played the Bears, he took Akeem Hicks, drove him 7 yards down the field, picked him up, and body slammed him. And Akeem Hicks looked up like, did that just happen? And then Frank Ragnow said, yes, it did, and I'm going to do it again. And he did it again. Swear to God.
Yeah.
You need that, and they got Taylor Decker as their left tackle. Yeah. The guards, they lost Jonah Jackson and some guys, but they've got guys you can service in there. But, I mean, that's a good old line in Detroit.
I'd be curious. I mean, I don't know, because will it be a gap scheme? Will it be a zone scheme? Will it be a combination of both? based on what you've seen on tape. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be just like what Detroit did with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. It may be a unique running scheme based on what the Bears put together, what they have in the backfield currently, what they might add, what they feel they have in the offensive line. Tommy, what do you think?
I still think 100% you have to have an emphasis of running the ball, because it's got to be the main way that you formulate your game plan. Because if you're going to have play action passing involved in your offense with a guy like Caleb, then you got to be able to have the threat of running the ball to make play action more deceptive. And to me, and we talked about it again, Jeff, the key ingredient is what can Karamagaji morph into? Can he come from that injured guy from a small college to take the steps in the second year to become a bona fide starter from training camp? If he can do that, then he can fill a void that you're searching for right now.
He's got really good traits,
Yeah.
He was invited to the Senior Bowl, but he had the quad issue, and then it stunted his growth. He comes to camp, he's not ready, and, they're trying to work him in and all those things, and he missed a lot of time. And that's a big jump, from going to the Ivy League to pro football, and that's why if he could have competed down in Mobile, he would have got a taste of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you're going against some of the top talent and said, I can do this. That's kind of, for me, it was a green light moment. Oh, these guys are the best in the country. I got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gain confidence. You're like, hey, this is the best of the best. I deserve to be here. Now that I know and I've confirmed that I deserve to be here, let's go. And I think he's kind of missed that moment a little bit.
If Karan Amagaji is considered a starter, I hope the Bears bring in another team to practice against, because you become familiar with practicing against your own guys. You would like to see him practice against somebody on the fly for a week.
And you got to run between the tackles, boys. You just have to. You got to, so hopefully that's a big part of it as well. All right, we promised our general manager we'll get him on the other side of this break. It is Bears Weekly here on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network, and this segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by CDW, people who get it.
This is ESPN Chicago, WNVP, WTBC, HD2 Chicago, a Good Karma Brands radio station.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
And this segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. SiriusXM, kind enough to allow us to use their facilities here tonight in Indianapolis from the Combine, where Jim basically has got a cot and 3 squares waiting for him behind this SiriusXM sign here as he gets ready to go nonstop here. Earlier this week, sitting with General Manager Ryan Poles, who met the media locally, nationally, and made the car wash around here in Indianapolis. Let's listen in to that interview with the General Manager.
Well, I appreciate it, but now you're an old pro here. Yeah. I think it's bigger than ever. Radio Row here at the Combine. I walked in and was startled, but you're used to this now, right?
Yeah, used to it. It's the old car wash, but it's fun. It's kind of a gateway into this next season in terms of acquiring new players to help us take the next step.
I like what you had to say earlier this morning with the local and national media. Momentum or things that didn't go well. Doesn't matter season to season. You're starting fresh. You have to, and this is obviously a reboot. That can't get lost on everybody, right? That's a significant statement to make.
Yeah, it is. And we got to remember that, coming off a successful year or coming off a year like we just had, it's an opportunity to hit the reset button, and we got to focus on places of improvement and attack that, with all of our energy so that we can, show up next year and be as successful as we possibly can be.
And it is a heavy lift when you're trying to build a football team and then reboot. I'm talking about your job. Yeah. So there's no time for anything but that. Now take us behind the curtain a little bit after you can exhale a little bit. The staff's together.
Yep.
What have you learned?
Yeah. First, starting with Ben, I've talked about this, is just how thoughtful and strategic he is, and really all the decisions that he makes. Seeing him work through and talking through different hires that he had on the staff and hear him talk about the chemistry of the group and not just the individual. He's got really good perspective and really just a really smart football person which is really encouraging because we're going to have a lot of these tough decisions we got to make, and we have to be thoughtful, and it can't be about one person or any type of ego. It's got to be what's best for the organization. So it's been really fun to see him work through that, and then spending time with the staff that he's hired and really seeing our front office and coaching staff come together to talk about how we want to move forward into the future. So we have a really good group of coaches. We have they're good evaluators, highly communicate at a high level, and just a lot of fun to work with.
How does it help your job when they're good evaluators? Because I've seen many coaches have not been good evaluators. They think they are, but they're not. They don't. That's not their full-time job, obviously. But to have the range of age and experience on the staff, how purposeful is that? How purposeful was that? And how important is that?
Yeah, that was very strategic, and that's where I thought Ben did a great job, is just pairing expertise with former players, with guys that bring a lot of energy, that have been around a lot of different types of players and organizations. So when you combine all of that, you have a really good group that's very knowledgeable on not only just building a football team, but coaching and developing players, which is critical for us. But that communication's got to be there. So, again, we're not going to see eye to eye with everything, but you do want to kind of be within certain parameters so you feel really confident about bringing in the type of players that you think can help your football team.
You know, in anybody's walk of life, if they have a group of people they've been put together with, and there's this moment when there's an excitement and electricity and you just feel, man, this is going to be good. I got a good team of people. Yep. Have you had those moments? Can you share one? I mean, does anything like, oh, my gosh, this is better than I thought it was going to be. This is going to be good.
Yeah, the one thing I can point to is when we brought the coaches into the draft room, had all of the scouts from all over the country come in for our meetings, and we went position by position and went over the criteria that they're looking for our offense and defense and special teams to perform at a high level. And I think just the back and forth, the questions that our scouts asked, the response from the coordinators, the openness between the two groups, you can really feel that energy amongst the whole unit. So I'm excited. You can feel the energy through the whole building with everybody that's here.
Yeah. Now, for scouts, they go out during the season and you're looking for your types of guys for the current staff at that moment. Is it a title shift? Is it a seismic shift in types of personnel now? And does that challenge your scouts to now try to come together and find the right types of guys?
Yeah, it depends on the position and the side of the ball. So there's a couple tweaks with different positions where, maybe physicality outweighs speed. Obviously, both front office and coach would like to have both.
Yes.
But you always get
so would the announcer.
Right. So there's always a point in player acquisition where you can't have all the traits in one bundle. So sometimes you're left picking and deciding. And that's where it helps us create clear vision of how we're going to go about and who we're going to target. So a slight adjustment. There's some, schemes adjustments defensively where we're going to change some things up. Where the physical criteria changes a little bit. So we'll work through that. I think there's some guys on our team that adapt really easily. Others, it'll be a little bit more challenging, and we'll work through that. But the one thing I just love is that the communication has been very clear.
I say the third of the roster, the bottom of that churns over every year. A wave of one-year signings of free agents, to give you depth and plug people in that can play right away. Are we looking at a potential, like there could be a lot of new personnel on the team?
We have the opportunity to bring in quite a few players this offseason. I wouldn't say it's going to be, anything crazy. But when I look at the draft and I look at free agency, I do love the fact that our needs and the supply do match up nicely. So I think there's going to be opportunity to bring in players that can help us win early.
I mean, everybody knows and everybody feels it, and we've talked about the line of scrimmage is certainly important. But you've done this before, so the best steps to building an offensive line that can make an immediate impact, because everybody says, love to be able to draft 4 starting offensive linemen. They're going to make mistakes. How do you balance that with the need to succeed, while growing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's being in lockstep with Ben and his staff. I also think it's going to be some type of combination of older players that can get up and get running fast with some younger players that come through the draft and maybe some guys that are in their second year that are still learning how to play at a high level. And when you combine those with good coaches, good teachers, you can still achieve some of those goals of getting up and getting running fast. But we also know that when you are putting a new scheme together, you have a new coach, new players coming in, there is going to be a process to get this thing up and get to full speed. And but we're excited to go through that.
Let's talk Caleb, because it all centers around his continuing development. And I know you mentioned it's like almost a reset for him. Fundamentals, techniques, process, all that learning with a guy like Ben. How impactful do you suspect it will be, and what their relationship will grow like?
Yeah, it's going to be very impactful, and their relationship has to be strong, and their trust in each other has to be very, very high, because in order to get Caleb to where he needs to go, there needs to be a lot of truth talk in terms of what he needs to accomplish to get his game to a level that can elevate the entire team, which is going to take time, and everybody knows that.
And when you say truth talk, that's been mentioned quite a bit. What does that mean?
Just telling it how it is, like in terms of what's good enough and what's not good enough. And I think one thing we talked about at the end of the year is just like challenging everybody to elevate their game consistently, whether you're a Pro Bowler, All-Pro. Like, there's always room to get better, and I know Ben's going to challenge Caleb to take the next step, because we saw some special moments. We just got to see that consistently. But we got to attack some of the areas that he's got to improve, and I know they'll get that done.
The business of football, do you feel good about some possible extensions?
Yeah, that's another really fun part with the new staff coming in is watching tape, getting caught up, and making sure that certain players fit what we're trying to do. So we'll meet with some reps while we're here just to see if things make sense. And then we'll get back and have some good conversations and spend some time with Matt Feinstein, who's done a wonderful job making sure our cap space is in a healthy position, remain flexible. And obviously we always want to take care of our own and re-sign guys that we draft. So we'll look into that, and hopefully some of those things will work out as we go forward.
Also, I know you like challenging yourself. How have you set about doing that for 2025?
Yeah, this whole process, going through the coach search, reflecting on why we came up short this past year has been really impactful, not only for me but for our whole group, just in ways that we can improve both player acquisition and free agency and the draft, making sure that we're honed in the right areas, that guys are coming in with the right criteria to elevate our team and elevate their own game and develop. And then even, like I said, going through the coaching search, just learning so much through that process of what is necessary to coach at a high level and bring a team together. It's been a lot of fun to go through, and again, the most important piece, like, can you self-assess and be critical of yourself? And I think we've done that as a group, and I've done that as an individual to make sure we don't make repetitive mistakes and we continue to grow and get better.
Well, good luck. Good to see you, and it's going to be fun ride. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
That's Bears General Manager Ryan Poles. Tom and Jim, a reaction to some of that. There's some highlighted points, obviously. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I'm just glad that the hard part is over, that the staff is in place. Everybody's in the building. He's got the scouts that got in front of the assistant coaches to kind of get an understanding of exactly what they're looking for. And now everything is the hunt and the search for players, whether it's the free agency or at the NFL and the combine. So I'm glad that the important part of the coaching staff in place is behind them at an early portion of the offseason. Now everything is player roster centric.
Jim, what caught your attention?
Yeah, I think, and it is. It's like what Bill Parcells says. The shopping list to buy groceries has changed, right? You've got new coaches who are looking for different things, different traits, whether it's strength, speed, whatever, how they're the vision of what they have that they're going to do. He mentioned the quarterback. Truth talk, You can't lead the league in sacks. My advice to Caleb Williams, you better know your protections. If you don't know your protections, 5-man, 6-man, 7-man, even 8-man, yes, there's an 8-man protection, you've got no shot. You need to know your protections. That is truth talk. That is truth talk, and he needs to know those in order for the Bears offense to function properly. Throwing the ball to the open guy on timing and rhythm, it's got to happen. That buzzer's got to be going off in his head. And again, and when you look at Ben Johnson, he cannot assume that whatever the coaching staff has taught him, the sins of the past can't carry forward. He's got to start from square one. This is how I want it done. This is what I expect. And it can't be any other way. Because when you start letting things slide, and I remember DJ Moore saying, yeah, Shane Waldron, he kind of let things slip. You can't do that. Because Tom knows when we did that, hey, guys, run it again until you get it right. Run it again until you get it right. Because when you start saying, yeah, coach, I'll get it. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, get it right. The only thing you're going to get is a coaching staff fired. And that's what just happened.
That's Jim Miller, Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak here on Bears Weekly. Back with more after this on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Had a chance to visit with Eric Edholm from NFL.com, who is all diving into the draft all season long. Let's listen in.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, every year is a new class, so it's like, if you cover the league, right, it's mostly the same faces, but every year with the draft, you get a new set of faces and names to learn, different body sizes. You get a story like Travis Hunter, right? We haven't had a two-way player come into the NFL in years, at least not to the level he did it. And, it just sort of pushes you to figure out how the scouts are going to view players like that. And so, yeah, I love it. It's like, going to a new restaurant on your birthday every year, and you're getting a pretty good taste for what's out there.
Well, it's a convention, but it's really grown. Radio Row, which was nothing on the first day here on Monday. I couldn't believe how many. Yep. I mean, it was at least 4 times bigger than a year ago. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, the event has grown so much, and yet there are people who kind of question openly, like, what is the future of the Combine? Like, what's going to, are we still going to be put all this emphasis on the testing and stuff? But the media attention's so big, and the league attention and everything. So Indy does such a great job hosting it, but, yeah, it's crazy to see how big
I don't want it to move, that's for sure.
I don't either. I love it here. It's close to us. Yeah.
Right. All right, let's look at it from a Bears point of view here. What's your lens looking at as the Bears' good draft capital, excellent salary cap situation, a new regime, however? Yeah,
obviously that first-round pick is in an interesting spot. This is not a year where you say, there are 10 no-doubt first-round blue-chip prospects at the top of the draft. So who's going to be there when they're on the clock? Are they willing to move up because of the extra capital, or do they value those early second-round picks? Those may be the real home run picks in a sort of way. And if you can get a solid player who fills a need with the first rounder, I think you almost get 2 first-round kind of talents down in that 39, 49, 41 range. So, I'm excited to see what they do. Ben Johnson obviously brings a lot of excitement. There's pressure on the Bears to win right now, given how last season unfolded. You still have a quarterback that everybody's, feels can be a star if everything kind of comes together. So, I know there's some hurt feelings of how things went, but there's still talent there. And I think they can do well in this draft. It kind of matches up pretty well with what they need. I would say D-line, O-line, running back, those all make sense, and those are all pretty good positions in this draft.
You have the opinion, like many, that if you want to tackle, though, you might have to go in that direction.
And you might have to draft somebody who other teams view as a guard. It's going to be a team-by-team basis. Armand Membu from Missouri looks like a guard, plays like a tackle. How do you judge that? Will Campbell, short arms, but, man, he looked the part. So I think there are going to be a lot of interesting debates. We had the kid from Northwestern a few years ago, Peter Skoronski. That's kind of you see a lot more of that shorter arm kind of guy, but good athlete. Where do you play him? The tackle spots can be a little trickier to fill, and there's some guys who take the Ohio State situation. Josh Simmons gets hurt, In comes Jackson. He plays great there. Looked like a guard before. Now you potentially have 2 left tackles from one school. So now I think if you look at it from the right lens, some teams will be very happy with the tackle class. Others will say you got to get one early, and that's your best bet to success.
We all fall in love with edge rushers,
yep.
Right? Like I did with the Marshall kid calling the Senior Bowl, and he had a great week there at the Senior Bowl. But the interior really is an underrated impact because it's closest to the ball, obviously. It can disrupt the vision of a quarterback. But I think that's where the strength of the entire draft, my opinion, you tell me, is the defensive tackles.
Yep, I would say the D-line group as a whole, but definitely the interior guys, no doubt about it. I mean, I think after you watch the workouts here and see what these 335-pound guys are going to be able to do. I want to
see what Michael Grant looks like.
Yeah, right.
On the hook.
Oh, my gosh, too. And,
from Michigan.
Yep. I mean, the whole Michigan group is incredible. I mean, the Grant and, it's funny that the guy who could be drafted highest, Mason Graham, is probably the least freaky of the athletes. So they've got a group there. The Big Ten in general, I think, is going to do real well in the defensive line group, too. But that interior group, I think, is going to be special. And so, again, I guess you come down to, do you have to get somebody up high or can you wait a little bit? I don't know if the depth is amazing, but it's, the first 3 rounds, I think, are going to have some stars there, which we haven't seen in a couple years.
Right. That's Eric Heck at home. I'm spitting it out as I watch some of these drills with the great defensive players, linemen, and linebackers here today. All right, when we come back, one final segment to wrap things up here from the Combine in Indianapolis with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
And this segment is brought to you by IGS Energy. Final moments with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller here from the Scouting Combine. Got to get a tip of the cap to President and CEO Kevin Warren, honored with a Buddy Tevens Forward Progress Award of the NFL Women's Forum, the 9th version of it, for his dedication and advocacy for women in the NFL. Quote from George McCaskey from Warren calling George McCaskey a trailblazer in this space. And, of course, we had the most powerful woman ever in the history of the NFL in Virginia Hallis McCaskey. So it is really an honor of her. It goes to my parents who taught me just do the right thing, just try to help people. So congratulations. And then Tanisha Wade, who oversees the DEI strategy and community engagement and other social impact efforts, has watched this Warren-led advocacy continue with the club's first ever women's advisory board. And, Tom, I know we talked about this, but that girls flag football first ever collegiate game championship in the state of Illinois on March 8th at the Walter Payton Center, Rockford University, Benedictine University at 6:15 p.m. Tom, are you going to be there?
I'm going to be. Listen,
okay.
I'm going through daily rehab on my knee, so I can be there on my feet to watch that. I'm excited to see it. I think it's an absolute, just the greatest thing that they've done for the sport of football and for all athletes involved.
And then we're gonna start stacking it. All right, he's gonna get healthy with his knee. He's gonna do that event, and then Tom and I, we're going to the Olympics 2028 flag football. Me and you, Tom, we're throwing our hat in the ring. What we're gonna do.
I like it. I like it.
Tom will be ready to
play tight end there instead of guard, and you can still sling it.
He'll be representing the USA. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'll be the water boy. How about that? Will that work for you guys? All right, guys, we are out of time. Thank you so much. It's been fun. Thanks again to SiriusXM for helping us out with the facility here. Thanks to our executive producer of the Bears Radio Network. It's Eric Ostrowski. Our producers, Dan Briley and Jordan Tredup, and Jack McGrath in studio tonight. Thanks to our guests as well. And for Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears. ESPN Chicago. Black and Abdallah are next. Good night, everybody.